Minted for over 300 years, this coin was the coin of choice for kings and pirates alike. It was the world's premier trade coin, building an elite navy of the time and building great wealth for Spain. This is the Spanish real. Minted during the peak of Spanish power, this coin's presence commanded respect. And because of this coin, two things would dramatically impact the history of Spain: their naval armada, along with the explorers, and the silver that was used to feed the real machine. See, the reach of Spain was far-reaching, and the impact of the explorers and the conquistadors had significant impact on Spain's wealth. Eventually, 12 Spanish colonial mints would be created: Mexico, Santo Domingo, Lima, La Plata, Potosi, Panama, Cartegena, Bogotá, Cuzco, Guatemala, Santiago, and Popayan produced a total of 5 different types of silver real. These coins were the pillar, the shield, the pillar and wave, milled pillar, and busted mill. These were all created during this amazing rule of Spain that lasted over 300 years. Now, when we look at the Spanish and all this silver, we wonder, where did they get this? So to fully understand where they got this silver and how it impacted, we need to look at the conquistadors and their impacts. Cortés was a Spanish conquistador who led an expedition that caused the fall of the Aztec Empire, brought large amounts of money back from the mainland, and put what is now the rule of King Castillo in the 16th century. The second one here is Ponce de Leon. Ponce de Leon was a Spanish explorer and a conquistador known for leading the first official European expedition to Puerto Rico. Now in 1508, then he went to Florida in 1513. It was a quest for gold. We also know him for the search for the Fountain of Youth. But he would also become the first governor of Puerto Rico as he traveled with Columbus in 1493. The next is Balboa. He was a Spanish explorer and governor, as well as conquistador, who was best known for crossing the Isthmus of Panama to the Pacific Ocean. Now, this happened in 1513. Now, he was the first European to lead an expedition to have seen or reached the Pacific from the New World. The next was Francisco Pizarro, the Marquis de Alabil. Now, he was a Spanish conquistador who was best known in his expeditions that led to the Spanish conquest and eventually the demise of the Incan Empire. He was also the one who was known for bringing back the most gold. Now, mind you, the South American exploits that made Spain the wealthiest were housed in Peru. Peru at this time was a vast storehouse of gold. So the question is, what was the purpose of these guys? Well, conquest was money, right? Get gold. They heard stories of this and they wanted to claim lands and bring back money and power for Spain. But they also knew that the lifeblood of the colony was land, and these became special landowners. They became special governors of these large areas, and they commanded great power. So being able to take over an area led to great power. Now, this great power in turn would gather wealth from their populace, and then that wealth would eventually lead to Spain, which led to more ships, which led to more conquistadors and explorers, which led to more. And again, it continued to grow this real machine. Now, when we look throughout its prolific period, one location stood out for providing the most silver during this time frame, and that was Potosi. Now, the Potosi, which is located in Bolivia, had globally introduced about 20% of all of the known silver across the world for about 300 years. This was so instrumental to history and the Spanish colonies. So much so was the importance of the Potosi mine. It was called in the beginning of global economy by Bernd Huschberg in 2020 in a report that Vanderbilt Press put out. So why am I doing a history on the silver coins and the Spanish real? Well, I did a video where I talked about Britain, Sir Isaac Newton, and the London Mint there at the Tower of London. I talked about something called clipping, and one of my subscribers asked me a question. Do you think that this stemmed from the act of what they would do in clipping the 8 real coins? You know, you had the coins, you put them into bits. And while the answer for the clipping was no, it's not specifically tied to the history of Spain and what they used to do. There are some ties, there are some representative similarities between the two, and there were some practices that could have been carried over in this time frame before the Great Recoinage of 1696. Now, when they would do this, they would clip the coins from a silver bar. These were called bobs. They were hammered into circles, and then they were stamped accordingly. Now, the clipping in this particular case actually happened from the mint. See, these coins would have a regular shapeness and thickness, and because it was hard to tell the size alone, they had to go based off weight. So if the mint was looking at it, putting this coin, and they found this coin to be overweight, they would clip it off until it actually weighed the proper amount. Now, this practice was picked up by unscrupulous people. These were merchants, these were tax collectors, these were people who just wanted to get a little bit extra money. And so they continued this art. Now, the question came during this time frame with the practices between the 15 and the 1700s. Was this tied to it? No. But again, you still had issues with counterfeiters in Spain like you did in England and Britain during the time frame. Now, during this time frame, counterfeiting or defacing a coin was considered treason. And despite that, they still did it. It was just something that they did because they wanted to create money. You had fractional pieces that were a half. You had 1, 2, 4, and 8 reals. Now, these reals could be cut into small bits. Again, now you can see how they could kind of tie into the relation of clipping. Now, a bit was equivalent to 1/8 of an 8 real. So if you cut it into 8 equal pieces, each one of those pieces would be called a bits. Have you ever heard the term 2 bits? Well, guess what? That came from this. So in the case of a 4 real, or 1/4 would be considered 4 bits, right? Each one would be 1 bit. If you had a 2 real coin and you cut it in half, then you would have 2 bits. So this is where that term 2 bits come from. This is where the bits and the cutting of the real. But again, the largest population of coins was called an 8 real. Now, because of its being cut into smaller pieces to pay for different things, the pirates of the time and the English and other people in that region would call this pieces of 8. So this is where the term and the lore of pieces of 8 came from. This is the general history. So now you have a good idea of the real, a little bit of Spanish history, and the great production of silver and the global effect that the real had across its colonies, eventually becoming the influence in American coinage, with our mint starting in 1792. Now, again, up here, you'll see these 2 videos where I talk about this. They're live streams. There's also a couple shorts. Go check those out, and I will see you over there.